Ukraine. Glory to the heroes. Natalia, we have all seen that during the previous day, Mykolaiv and Mykolaiv region, Odessa region were under shelling. What is the current situation? What was the last day? Yes, really. In the south, the enemy goes on to remotely impact the lives of the civilians, the ones which are in the rear. In particular, Mykolaiv is still under shelling with the non-typical systems of air defense, that is S-300, and the industrial, social, residential blocks are being damaged, including the Kryvyi Rih direction. We can see the same at Nikopol part, which is on the second part of the water reservoir under the heavy shelling of the multiple launch rocket systems. Unfortunately, there are people who have been injured and casualties there. If we speak about Odessa region, Odessa is also in the process. Today in the morning, the enemy has hit with missiles against the infrastructure objects of Odessa region. The attack against South is going on to let people know that the control by the adversary parts is done. Even if they feel lack in the direction of the land, they try to impact remotely. During the last hour, there is an active discussion of the events about Antonifka bridge. They speak about the new missiles there. Could you comment if you can? We are going on to have the fire control over the transport arteries, in particular on the occupied territories, because we know that the enemy will try to deliver some reserves through them. Yesterday, there have been another hit against Kakhovka direction, Kakhovka bridge, and of course, this is the hydrotechnical unit, which is rather complicated, so our artillery is working very subtly there and cautiously, so we would like to ruin the plans of the enemy to use this object for themselves. We are correcting the repairment and maintenance works, so-called. That is, we are having hits against the repairment equipment when they try to close the gaps. And Antonivka bridge is one of the directions for transport. They also try to reanimate it, but they understand that such a complicated construction cannot be repaired just with concrete. It needs substantial repair works and technological processes. That is why we are keeping that under control, and from time to time we remind them about our remote presence. Natalia, we have seen the successes of our armed forces about the systematic destroying of the warehouses and command points of the occupiers. Could you please tell about the results of this work of our armed forces in the south of Ukraine? Yes, surely. One of our main tasks and missions is to destroy logistics, to ruin their storages of ammunition and equipment, and not give them an opportunity to create command points. So the hits of and strikes of our aircrafts and artillery is against those objects. And we are always reporting about that. 3 or 4 objects per day are destroyed like this. And maybe someone can have an impression that whatever we do against ammunition delivery ways, they are still not over. I would like to remind you that the occupation is ongoing for the 6 months, so they supplied in advance lots of ammunition, in particular considering the military cunningness. They try to refocus the storage and warehouses because they understand that we can clearly calculate where they are. We're all following the events in the temporarily occupied Crimea. Do we understand, if you can please comment on the losses which the adversary has on those territories? Do we know the scale of these losses? We understand the losses, we get the intelligence data, but we cannot announce about them. We can just say that we are happy about them. And let us speak a bit about the situation in the Black Sea. As for the Black Sea, the enemy is expanding their presence. In particular, the number of missile carriers is now 5. That is more than 30 missiles of caliber type, which are ready to be used. And recently, they've used these 5 missiles of this type when they were trying to hit the agrarian enterprise in Odessa region. Today there was the attack conducted in a different way with the use of the air missile Ha-59 and the aviation Su-35, which was launching the missile today. But recently they launched 5 caliber missiles. I'd like to remind that such the work of muscles is very typical for the army with which we are now at war with. So it may be both just a threat or real missile strikes. So you shouldn't neglect the warnings, but you shouldn't be panicky. In a day, we will all celebrate a huge day for us, the Independence Day of Ukraine. We all understand that the adversary is really has a very specific and particular attitude towards different holidays, especially our holidays. Are we ready for provocations? Do we foresee any of them? Yes, we acknowledge that it can take place. In particular, they would like to have to use these sacred dates, and there can be missile strikes provoked by that. They can have the activation phase of some groups at the front line. We are ready, we are conscious about that, and we would ask the civilians to take that into account as the threat of for the rare regions which are under attacks, and including the non-typical attacks. If we speak about the deeper regions of Ukraine, please remember that, for instance, the missiles of caliber type can be in any part of Ukraine, so do not neglect the air raid alarm. Dear colleagues, are there any questions? There are no questions left, so I thank you, Natalia. I remind you we had Natalia Humeniuk, head of the United Coordinating Press Center of Security and Defense Forces of the South of Ukraine. We thank you that you were in touch with us and provided the very important information. Dear colleagues, I remind you that at 4 p.m. Kyiv time, we will have the presentation of the Dialogues on the War project. The presentation will be shown by Taras Shevchenko, Deputy Minister of Culture and Information Policy on European integration, Oleksiy Shkuratov, Deputy Minister of Education and Science of Ukraine, Roman Gladkovsky, Project Officer at the Ministry of Education and Science, Anna Baikenich, Project Officer at the Ukrainian Institute of National Memory, Remembrance, Volodymyr Telishchak, Deputy Head of the Ukrainian Institute of National Remembrance, the Director, Principal of School number 309 of Kyiv, Olga Tymoshenko, Alexander Dries, Director of Four-Post International Producer Center, and Dmytro Kiselevich, Director of the Production Unit of Alexander Dovzhenko Film Studio. So please stay with us and watch our presentation of the new project. Thank you.